Next-gen gaming is already here. I've had a fully functional Xbox Series X for a few days at this point, and I put as much time as possible into using it. And so far, I'm impressed. There are certain aspects of the Series X that we can't talk about quite yet, but of those things that are on the table, we have performance with backwards compatible Xbox One games, the hardware design itself, load times, and the quick resume feature. And right now, I'm feeling that the latter two are real game changers. But first, let's start with the actual gameplay experience. Currently, we don't have access to any Series X specific content, but Microsoft has made a set of backwards compatible Xbox One games available. In these first few days, I've played The Outer Worlds, Halo 5 Guardians, Final Fantasy 15, Yakuza 0, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, a variety of games all available through Game Pass. These have all been smooth gameplay experiences, nothing too unexpected or drastically different from the Xbox One X in terms of performance so far. But I did want to call out one standout example of the Series X providing a noticeable boost. In Final Fantasy 15, I enabled Light Mode in the enhancement options, which is also available on the One X. This prioritizes frame rate, allowing for up to 60 FPS. On the One X, the game would often drop below 60 FPS. With the Series X, from what I can tell, the game ran at a consistent 60 FPS the entire time. Boosts in performance are on a case-by-case basis. Games that use dynamic resolution to keep smooth frame rates will maintain higher resolutions, if not native 4K, by virtue of the beefier hardware. Barring a future update from developers, some games such as The Outer Worlds are locked at 30 FPS, but at least you won't be dropping frames. And in games that allow higher frame rates, such as Final Fantasy 15 with performance mode enabled, as I mentioned, you'll notice games consistently hitting that high mark with the Series X. I've been using the LG BX Series 4K HDR TV with HDMI 2.1, which offers 120Hz refresh rate, meaning it can display up to 120 frames per second. Although games such as Ori will get that 120 FPS enhancement, the feature has not been implemented in Ori or anything else yet. On the topic of backwards compatibility, you'll be happy to know that first-party games will support cross-gen multiplayer. I can confirm this from my time playing Halo 5 online using the Series X. For third-party games, it'll be up to developers to enable cross-gen multiplayer. Now for one of the heavy-hitting features of the Series X, short load times. Microsoft has been flexing its velocity architecture and ultra-fast solid-state drive, but I got to see it go to work firsthand. The Xbox Series X loads games much faster than the Xbox One X, and we tested this out by recording load times on 4 different games. In going from the game's title screen to loading a save game, we got the following numbers. Red Dead Redemption 2 took 2 minutes and 8 seconds on the Xbox One X, but only 38 seconds on the Series X. Control went from 58 seconds on the One X to 10 seconds on the Series X. Final Fantasy 15 took 1 minute and 11 seconds on the One X and just 13 seconds on the Series X. And The Outer Worlds went from 43 seconds to 11 seconds. These numbers indicate that the Series X cuts down on initial load times by 70 to 80% of the time it takes for the One X, and that's significant. This extends to booting up games from the Xbox dashboard and also reloading saves. And this is for existing games that weren't built with the tech in mind, but are simply taking advantage of the faster drive speeds. It's a snappy overall experience, similar to my PC with an NVMe SSD. This means you'll be spending less time waiting and more time gaming. Now for something related to short load times and the velocity architecture, we have Quick Resume. It's the all-new Series X and Series S feature that lets you suspend the state of your current game to go into another one, and another one, and another one, all without shutting down or rebooting any of those games. I was able to keep 6 games simultaneously suspended in Quick Resume and hop between them to pick up right where I left off. With a 7th one booted, the first game I queued up in the process had to be relaunched, though there doesn't seem to be a warning of another game state having to close. But let's be honest, having 6 games held in Quick Resume is more than enough. Just so you know, swapping between games takes about 5 to 8 seconds, depending on where you paused it. And well, that's so much faster than having to relaunch an entire game. When it was first announced, I didn't think much of Quick Resume until I experienced it for myself. Personally, I like jumping between different genres or styles of games when I sit down for a gaming session, mixing things up when I've had my fill. And in conjunction with Game Pass, where I'm often jumping between multiple games I have downloaded anyway, it really starts to shine. Quick Resume is a type of feature that we don't even see on PC, and in that regard, the Xbox Series X showcases some innovative next-gen tech. It's kind of a game changer, literally. Onto the hardware itself, the new controller offers some subtle but noticeable improvements over the current Xbox controllers. First is the textured grip on the handles and the triggers, and a bit on the bumpers. It's a nice tactile feel that's going to help prevent slipping, especially for you sweaty folk. The dedicated share button is clutch too, letting you capture screenshots and video clips on the fly, which even works if you connect it to an Xbox One. The new 8-way D-pad is quite clicky and a bit stiff, though it is responsive. I personally like it, but it really comes down to preference. Now we all know that the Xbox Series X has that thick brick-like design, but it's not as big as you might think. It certainly towers over the other current gen consoles in terms of height, whether you stand it up vertically or lay it sideways. Either way, you'll want to make sure you have enough vertical clearance in your setup for it, but I don't find its size and shape all that prohibitive. There's still a lot more to explore with the Xbox Series X, but that's all I can get into right now. Since we've only had access to Xbox One backwards compatible games, we haven't really had the chance to see the Series X fully flex its graphical horsepower quite yet, but we'll get there. Again, I want to reiterate how refreshing it was to have such fast, snappy loading for console games, and to have Quick Resume changing the way I can jump from one game to another and get more out of my time playing. I've said this before, but I feel like the next-gen experience will be impacted more by those practical improvements in the user experience, and that's what I've been most impressed with in the Series X so far. For more on the Xbox Series X, be sure to check out our full video of the load time comparisons and with Quick Resume in action. And for all your next-gen news needs, be sure to stick to GameSpot because we have so much more coming. Thanks for watching.